Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Strategize Your Success show. Today, I'm very excited to have my special speaker and co host joining us today. I have Lynden Kidd and I also have Lisa Nutt. And I think you're really going to enjoy this show, whether you're an entrepreneur or someone that's working for a company or a nonprofit, because we're going to touch upon how to ignite your leadership. And that can also be in your community. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and have Lynden introduce herself.
Well, thank you, Wanda, and thank you for having me with you. I really am enjoying this opportunity. So, what you need to know for those of you who are small business owners and entrepreneurs is I get you. I've been in my own space since 2004. I've had a long career history of advising and consulting with businesses. And so it's my pleasure to be here today and share a little nugget of wisdom, if you may, about about igniting your leadership. So back to you, Wanda.
Okay. And we'll have Lisa go ahead and introduce herself.
Yes, thanks, Wanda. Great to be here. So Lisa Nutt with 2 T's, please. I am a realtor, and what I have decided to call myself also a multi-passionate mompreneur. This is the latest iteration of my life. We could go through all the chapters, but this is what I'm doing lately, including a passion project called Make Every Minute Count.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'm Wanda Baader, your host. My company is Strategize Your Success, and we are a full-service online marketing agency helping people get found online. So we're going to go ahead and have Lynden start us off. She has something special that she wants us to engage with. Please, wherever we're live streaming to you at right now, we would love for you to participate in the conversation and ask your questions throughout the show. So please let us know what questions you might have of any of us related to this, really awesome topic about igniting our leaderships.
Super. So one of the things that I know as an executive leadership and career transition strategist is it's really important to manage who we are and how we address ourselves and our people. So I'd like to do a little bit of an exercise with you. Please, if you're listening to this and you're driving or doing something else, be sure that you don't put yourself in danger. One other thing I want to say is one of my favorite quotes ever is success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And that's from Tony Robbins. And that's kind of my mantra when I'm working with people. So what I'd like you to do is to cup your hands. And I'd like you to put one arm out in front of you. I'm putting my left arm out first, and I'm going to start very gently at my fingertips, tapping, just tap, 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 tap. And what we're doing here is we're energizing ourselves, believe it or not. So tap, 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 all the way up your shoulder. Give yourself a good pat on the back while you're there, and then come back down, tap, 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 tap. And then let's switch hands, tap, 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 tap. So we're going up the other arm, tap, 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 tap. And again, be sure and give yourself a good pat on the back when you're there, and that shoulder some love, and then give your elbow some love as you're coming back down, coming back down, coming back down. All right, now we're going to go to our legs. So you're going to get to look at the top of my head, but we're going to go down to our legs. We're going to tap, 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 tap on the sides of our legs. You can hear my bare legs. Tap, 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 tap. We're going to keep going up and get our thighs and give the knees some love. And then we're going to go to our backside, give our backside some love. And then go to the small of our back and give the small of our back a little bit of love. And now we're going to come back and go back down. Da, 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 da. And when you're done, I'd like you to hold your hands with a little bit of space in between them. But I want you to be aware of how much your energy has changed and how much more alive you might feel. And if you can feel some energy in between your hands as well as in those places that we just activated, So one of the things that happens as leaders is we forget about ourselves. We tend to get very focused on our clients, on everything everybody else needs. And that's where we have some of our greatest challenges. So part of the reason for the exercise is just that, to remind you that you, as the owner of your own business, are responsible for the energy in the business. And sometimes it might mean that you need to take a step back and just give yourself some love. So with that said, okay, I think we're ready for questions now, ladies.
Okay, Lisa.
Ha ha ha, I get the first
Ah.
one. Thanks. Let me get there because we are prepared on this show. Here we go. So, Lynden, you talk about the chaos, right, and fear of unchartered and unscripted times as a leader. So, how do we not take it on the chin?
So, as we all know, we've just experienced and we are continuing to experience what I will call unprecedented times. And so, one of the things as leaders, especially if you've got a team that's supporting you, is it's up to us to take 100% responsibility for what's going on. And we can try to blame, shame, the world around us, what's going on around us, and feel victimized by that. But the reality is there's a formula that I've learned from my Campfield methodology training called E plus R equals O. And the E stands for event. So there, stuff happens. That's the event.
Yep.
R is the response, and O is the outcome. So if you think of it as a math problem, it's E plus R equals O. But in that equation, the only thing that we have responsibility for is the R. And the O is predicated based on the combination of the E and the R. So we are responsible for our response to it and figuring out how to get upstream enough that our response can be as resourceful as possible. In leadership, it's not the E that's the biggest problem. It's our thinking that an event shouldn't be so. So it's usually the resistance to it. And y'all, we got enough going on around us. There's plenty to be resistant about. But the reality is, it is what it is. So the definition of disappointment is making appointments with the future that the future doesn't keep. And this was something I actually wrote about in my book chapter in Ignite Your Leadership. And this was motivated by an interaction I was having with my daughter, where as the country went into lockdown and she was realizing as a high school senior that she wasn't going to have a traditional graduation and she wasn't going to have prom and all those kinds of things. I really reached out and I said, what can I do to help her understand this? And it's this definition, that the definition of disappointment, that the future isn't keeping a promise that she thought should be there. So then it was a matter of helping her reframe. We do this all the time. We do this all the time in our businesses where we're pivoting and where we're adjusting and we're making changes. So how do we wake up to what isn't working in our companies and not be caught in some idealized bubble? And that's, you got to spend some time working on your business, not just in your business. So it's that awareness that you take the breath and you actually, on my flip chart, I'm turned around, but on my flip chart, if I'd have left the page that was marked on down, it has all my strategic planning for 2022. And I actually use stickies. So I have all these stickies of priorities, and I have them in organized in terms of the topic. But what I want you to think about is, what are the goals that you're setting for yourself, or what are the objectives that you're setting for your business? And are you keeping track with a dashboard that allows you to reflect at the end of the month and have a sense of if you're on track or off track. And this is another wonderful exercise that I learned with the Campfield methodology. But, we spend 80 to 90% of our time actually off track. And we're like a missile guidance system where it's off track and then you adjust back, and you're off track and then you adjust back. Same thing's true with airplanes as they're flying across country. They get off track and then they get back on track. And so it's really a matter of just having that agility and that flexibility for yourself, and anticipate as best as you can.
Yeah, I was going to hope that you mentioned anticipation, because I think that is so key, and often what we don't do, right? We react as opposed to do our best to anticipate.
Right. One of the first industries that I worked in was healthcare, and that was definitely a putting out fires environment. And it was really hard to stay on track. And Wanda knows this. It's really hard to stay on track when all you're doing is putting out fires. But if you really want to be strategic, strategize your success, Wanda. You have to get upstream of it so you can know what the elegant pivot's going to look like before you get smacked in the head with something that you don't want to get smacked in the head with. So you want to get that magic 8-ball out and realize that in many cases, it's going to be your relationships that help you survive. And so it's whether they're vendor relationships, team relationships, or other networking relationships. Networked relationships. So much of our fortitude, so much of our resilience, especially in this kind of chaos, comes from the bounce that we get from our network. I believe networking is a life skill, and that the trampoline of the network gently lifts us back into action when we've had some kind of mishap that might have pushed us out. And so it's that network that keeps us going.
Lynden, I have a question is, how do we wake up what isn't working in our companies?
Again, you need to have some kind of a dashboard that you're paying attention to that's predicated around your goals. And let me go back to relationships.
Okay.
We need to think about those strategic relationships that we have and look in the eyes of our people, and really realize that what our intentions are, what our goals are, need to line up with what's going on with our people. So you've got that shared motivation in terms of becoming and being successful. And that's not always easy to do, especially as a solopreneur or a small business owner. You've got a lot on your shoulders, and yet you need to go back to working on your business. And that means taking the pause to have those significant conversations with the people that are on your team. Most strategic planning companies just look at revenue, but I think you also need to look at what are you doing? What are you doing in the world? And if your employees, for example, if you make a widget and your employees aren't on the same page with you about the value of the widget, they're probably not going to sell very well, or they're not going to be as motivated salespeople as they could be. So we really want to be thoughtful about how we bring the people in our lives, in our business lives, along with us.
Definitely. Well, it's like, I know there are a lot of people that might be listening in that are solo entrepreneurs, but they might have a virtual assistant. They might be contracting part of what they need done, like to a marketing firm like myself, or some other kind of support. And so communications, especially at arm's length, because these are people that are not going to be sitting in front of your face every day. They're going to be, maybe across the country supporting you in your business. So I know that you have to be, what's clear to you might not be as clear to them. And the communications is super important in order to meet that goal that you are trying to drive your business with. So thank you for what you had to say before. It's excellent advice.
Thanks. So you bring up such a good point. and so many businesses struggle with communication. So you need to think about your communication stream. How are you going to do it? And be sure that everybody's on page in terms of the frequency, text. Maybe you're going to use Messenger, or maybe you're going to use Slack. What's the medium for your conversation and for capturing those? And maybe you're doing business this way, over a live stream or over Zoom. And, what are the rules around how well you function in that environment as well? So yeah, Wanda, that's an excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up. So go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, you go ahead. It's like I'll keep us on time, because I know that we're already halfway through the show, and it's just like, wow, it's going so fast.
So when I talk about a dashboard, you want to know, what the, if you will, what the bumpers are for what's the lower level for acceptance of performance, and what's the higher level. And we're always thinking we're going to exceed our higher level. But if you do have a lower bumper, at least a reminder, an alert, then you can know when it's time to go to plan B, or to make that strategic pivot. So one of the things that we all have discovered, and this is I'm moving on to the next quote, and this is from Winston Churchill. And if you're going through hell, keep going. And I love the image that comes with that, because I can see some people sometimes, and this is just in my work with, as I mentioned, executives and leaders and people in career transition. And sometimes when the tough gets going, some people just want to sit down. They want to get out that lawn chair, and they want to sit on the lawn and just kind of be there. But that's why it's keep going. And the kind of resilience that needs to come from being in unprecedented times is really important, but it's also very fatiguing. So we need to remember that we need to take care of ourselves as well. So we communicate, as Wanda said, clearly with everyone about everything all the time. And that's the sign of an ignited leader, is someone who is forthright, who's straightforward, who it addresses things with grace and with wisdom, but straight on. And that happens because of the communication, because of being in dialogue with vendors, with other stakeholders, with, again, your team. And going back to the concept of communication, just being sure that everyone's on the same page about expectations, frequency, and it's not just reporting. It's beyond just reporting. It, again, is being sure that everyone's aligned with what the mission and goals are for the organization. So everyone's presenting the same kind of front to the audience that they serve. And hopefully you're functioning from a place of heart rather than just being guided by your advisors. So I know one of the things that many of you may have faced is, bad news that your numbers are off, and maybe your business is off, and you're trying to figure out the adjustments that you need to make. And what I want you to hear is take the time, again, to work on your business and get still and listen to what's really going on with you. Because as the leader, you need to be that person that's not only the face of the business, but the face of the leadership, and that person that's out front, hopefully coherently leading the organization that you're a part of, and being honest about some of the issues that might be present as well, not just burying them in the sand or not talking about them with your stakeholders, but really being forthright in that conversation.
Yeah, it's like, Lisa, I'm sure that you have something to add to that, being a community leader and someone who is involved in a lot of different type of organizations. How do you feel?
So the word that came up for me when Lynden was speaking about that was transparency, right? And the power of transparency. Oftentimes, leaders, I believe, mistake that they can't be transparent, that somehow that is going to bring about some kind of negative consequences. And in my experience and in my view, the exact opposite is true. And so when we can embrace the transparency, because in the transparency comes vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, right? And her TED Talk on the power of vulnerability. And so that then indicates authenticity. And when authenticity is palpable, right, and is an example that we can provide, then we are all better for it, right? And our organizations are better for it, and our community is better for it. So if there's no other takeaway today, right, I would say that the power of that transparency and the need for that transparency as a leader in any capacity is so crucial. Because even in our families, right, I know my children respond to me much better when I am just being transparent about what the situation is, right? So it doesn't even have to be in outside organizations, just within all of our circumstances, that the power of that transparency, that's true leadership, I think.
Thank you,
Agreed.
Lisa. Great words of wisdom.
Mhm.
And Lynden, it's like you coach clients, you work with people all the time. What is it that you think is some of the things that will trip people up when it comes to doing the things that you're advising?
It's a lack of clarity, Wanda. It's as simple as that. So while we were talking about the power of the dashboard and knowing where your bumpers are, if you're not clear about your mission, your purpose, your values, your vision, and if you haven't been able to communicate that clearly with others, then they can't come along. And so it goes back to figuring out your why, your company's why, and your stakeholders why, the people that you are providing your services to. But you also, I go back to, you need to look in the eyes of your employees and know enough about them, your employees, your team, your independent contractors who support you, and know enough about your team that you understand what their why is. And then part of the artfulness of being a good leader is figuring out how to sync those two, so there is that synchronicity between what motivates the people that are your team and why that's important for your business and how it links up to your business. If you're passionate that the widget you are selling is the bomb diggitiest, best live company enhancement possible, I'll bet you sell more. And so getting clear about why and linking the why to your team or your stakeholders is a super, super important feature.
Thank you, Lynden. I just also want to add that it's like when you are seeking outside help, even if it's, you have a small budget, and again, going back to like a virtual assistant or a part-timer or something like that that you're bringing into your business, I think it's really important that you ask the right questions during the hiring process, because those interview questions can be very telling. You might even want to incorporate personality profile testing. Some people are a fan of it, some people aren't. There's some really great ones out there. Do you have any recommendations on that, Lynden?
I sure do. And so the goes back to being clear what you want to know of the people that you're potentially bringing on board. And with assessments like DISC, where you can understand someone's leadership style, that's important. You want to be sure that the team meshes well together. I'm also a big fan of the Clifton Strengths assessment, and that's one. There's a 34 element nuanced assessment, and what I really love about it is not only does the report give you a good, handsome amount of information for the top 10, but you also find out where your blind spots are. And not only when you're bringing someone in, but also for yourself. So you have an awareness of, when you might gloss over something. So going back to what you're saying, those are the two assessments that come top of mind that I would definitely use if I was adding to my team. I'm not as familiar with a sales specific assessment. There is, at any rate, I've lost the name of that one. But yeah, you want to be thoughtful again about your expectations and building appropriate expectations during the course of the interview, being sure that you're asking performance-oriented questions and then getting to a good decision and keeping notes so you're treating everyone that you're working with the same.
I'd like to add something to that. Sorry, Lisa, I'll come right back to you.
Yep.
Is that as somebody who has been in HR in way back in my years, but as somebody who hires talent all the time to work with our agency, is that sometimes those assessments that you mentioned, and I've taken both of them, and I like the Clifton. Is that the one that you said?
The Clifton Strengths,
Yes. That one's really more deep diving in a different way than the DISC, but it also allows you to get more insight into someone's personality so that you can ask the questions that you find the most interesting and valuable to your mission and goal for your business.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa, let me bring you on for your question.
Thanks. The comment I had was that also to not only be hiring for where you are, but for where you are going. And
Absolutely.
so that relates to the anticipation again, right? So as a leader, that's a very important distinction and perhaps a nuanced way to approach your hiring.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to say we've got about 3 minutes left in the show. So if you're out there, I know we have people joining us live. If you have any questions specifically related to your situation, please let us know so that we can ask Lynden those questions for you. And Lynden, anything on like some closing notes that you could share?
Sure. I just wanted to say, one, thank you for the opportunity again. But we started off with our pat exercise.
Yes.
So I want to come back around to the thought of doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. And so professionally, of course, stay on top of the leading literature, do what you need to do to connect with other leaders and strategists in your industry or in your area of focus. Plug into those resources that you need to plug into to keep your finger on the pulse of your business. Obviously, if you're in a function or business that's part of an association, those are some great resources to tap into, usually not just from professional development perspective, but from industry growth perspective. But also take care of yourself personally. You can't be an ignited leader if you can't spark because you're burned out. So remember that exercise that we just did and find grace and compassion for yourself first, and then share that. It sparks a culture that's receptive, resilient, and resourceful, even in times of uncertainty. So thank you, Wanda and Lisa. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Well, I want to thank both of you ladies for taking time out of your day to share your words of wisdom with our audience. And I just wanted to say that if you are interested in our upcoming shows on the Strategize Your Success show, we air live streaming on Mondays at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And our next show will actually we'll have Debbie Saviano, who's joining us for Valentine's and Diana. And our topic is going to be all about the social media, is it here to stay? And, you know, with all the changes that we see happening in the marketplace these days, you know, like, you know, Facebook just dropped a whole ton of money. It's just like, so what does that mean for the future of Facebook? You know, where is social media going? What can we anticipate? What can we control? And it's going to be a great conversation. So again, join us. If you joined us through the YouTube channel, you should be able to see that link if you want to get a reminder. And again, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to those who have joined us during the live stream. We enjoyed having you out there in the audience. And if you're catching the replay, we hope that if you have any questions, that you'll shoot them our way, because we'd love to get back to you. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. And
Thanks. Be
strategize
well.
your success.